How you doing? Yeah, I've been asked to join a lot of clubs. Hold on, I'm gonna clean my glasses. I'm gonna edit that out of this video, and I've always turned it down. One of my favorite funny quotes is from Groucho Marx, who said I would never join a club that would have me as a member. That's the kind of funny part, but there's no such thing as truth by consensus. It absolutely doesn't exist in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. This ancient term both in Greek and Pali and Sanskrit and other languages, and it means basically a forest dweller. Because wisdom is not a group activity. You actually can have wisdom or actually genuine invention. There's a reason why Nikola Tesla was alone 99.99% of the time. Truth by consensus is completely antithetical to facts, logic, and wisdom and all of ancient history. It just actually just doesn't exist. And I want to talk about some clubs, and I've been asked to join a lot of clubs over a period of time. There's all sorts of neat clubs, and there's a human drive towards collectivism, unfortunately. And there's a lot that can actually be accomplished collectively. But the greatest evils always come collectively. There's individual evils, of course. It's like, man, that guy was, I had no idea that guy was so evil, as it turns out. You know, crazy stuff buried in the basement, you know, that kind of level of evil. And then there's group evil. And there's people that just go along to get along. And they'll agree to anything. And I'm not actually interested in going after any religion specifically at all. I'm not at all interested in that. I couldn't care less what anybody believes in. By the way, some of the secret clubs that, I call it a club. To call them clubs, a few of them, is kind of a loose term. They are actually way worse than clubs. But wisdom's not a group activity. Like, I've been to some of these websites and Facebook pages that I've been asked to join. You know, you're so smart, we'd love you to join. You know, on a lot of things, about a lot of things. I've never heard anybody, got an email yesterday, I never heard of somebody, you know, define the two different types of light and the two different types of darkness. Of course, there's the darkness cast by matter, and there's the darkness of the unseen principle. This is also, too, called the dark sun. And there's two different types of light. There's the light that's not seen, and then there's the light that's actually manifest, kind of like the illumination that's falling on my hand that lets you see the hand. And then, of course, there's the darkness cast ultimately, resultantly, by my hand being in the way of the light. And light is not to be confused with illumination. If you really understand like about a dozen primary things like the conjugate principles of the universe, you could really understand the entire basis and foundation of Natura Naturans, or Mother Nature. Some of these websites are really scary. You actually have to have a password and be allowed to go in there. And you'll never find me a member of any of those places. There's all sorts of, you know, less, I say dangerous ones, like the Odd Fellows. There's some that are not so innocent. I'll call it the Clearwater Group, located in Clearwater, Florida. I'll let you actually guess what the Clearwater Group is referenced to. The personalities that actually exist behind these, they're always power play, and there's absolutely no difference between religions that actually gain famous popularity, like Emperor Constantine, or today we actually call it Buddhism, but the term Buddhism didn't exist until the 16th century. But we would have absolutely zero idea about it whatsoever if Emperor King Ashoka, excuse me, not Emperor, King Ashoka of ancient India, and of course India didn't exist back then, wasn't converted into believing same. And the same is true of Constantine. Without Constantine, we wouldn't have the Catholic Church. We wouldn't have any of these brands. We would have no clue. Somebody could say it's actually divine providence. You know, it was forcing. You know, sure, that's a great stretch of the imagination. The opposite that people will fall into, they'll actually make bold, illogical declaration about these collective entities that get you to believe in things. And the opposite extreme of that is nihilism. Nihilism and atomism and atheism, by the way, are the exact same thing. You're intelligent enough to see these things for what they are, but you're not intelligent enough to see that positing cosmic flatulence as the basis for beauty and creativity and everything that's divine and uplifting in the world can't be happenstance. I mean, the opposite of these belief systems, and that's what they are, they're collectivists, is these people that see it for what it is and they completely reject it and they go in the opposite extreme. These are the same people that will tell you, what's the basis of life? They can't tell you, well, it came from another planet. We came from another planet. And of course, science fiction loves to pick that up. It's like, well, humanity and life came from another planet. We can't explain life. It's way too complicated. So what we're going to do is we're going to retroduct it on another alien species. Like 10 zillion years ago, another alien species from a distant planet came here and seeded life. And that's where it came from. It's like all you've done is you've said that complexity and beauty in nature is utterly impossible for your small mind to explain. So what you've done is you've displaced it. It's kind of like when some lady said that the Earth was flat as a pancake, and the guy goes, "Oh, what's holding up the Earth then?" And she says, "It's a turtle. A turtle's holding up the Earth." And the guy goes, "Well, what's holding up that turtle?" And the old lady says, "This turtle's all the way down." In other words, a turtle holding up that turtle and another turtle underneath that one and another one to infinity. It's just completely ridiculous. You actually point out the ridiculousness of one thing and you replace it with something way more crazy. And that's what they've done. It's called actually transpermia. In other words, the complexity and beauty of life is way too complicated for even the most intelligent mind to explain. So what we've done, we've displaced. They don't have to explain it. What it did is it came from an alien race that existed a really, really long time ago. And there's been science fiction movies that have actually picked up this absurdity. And it's ridiculous. It's absolutely no different than saying if you took 1,000 monkeys and 1,000 typewriters, the old type of typewriters, and you stuck them in a room and you locked the door for many billions of years, that, crazy monkeys that were flinging their poo, beating on typewriters. It's like waiting for a cake to be cooked. You just give it a few billion years, those crazy monkeys slamming their fists on the typewriter will, given enough time, produce a 11-volume set or whatever of Shakespearean literature, which is, of course, completely ridiculous. So that's the other antinomy. You got atomism and nihilism on one end, and you have the religions on another. I don't know if you know this or not, but pagan is actually a pejorative that's actually used by the Catholic Church. I think right after the Roman Empire, the Catholic Church adopted this as a form of slander. It comes from the paganus, meaning rural or rustic, or later civilian. It's a term used in the 4th century of early Christianity for the people of the Roman Empire who practiced anything that was not Judeo-Christianity. 4th century is when it came along. These were any sort of ethnic or native beliefs or practices that were other than Judeo-Christianity. These rural or rustic or civilian. Basically, the term originally meant like a goober. In other words, you're a spiritually elevated person if you believed in this, but if you were following the ancient beliefs of your great-grandfather, on and on and on, then you're just a goober, or I'm not going to use the red and the neck word, but you're just like a bumpkin, like an illiterate goober. Anybody with 5 brain cells today, like reading the Kalevala, or reading there's a lot of the complexity within the Rig Veda, the Athura Veda, the Sama Veda, knows that this is not true, but that's the pejorative that's actually used. The Greek term is idolatrikos, which means idolatrous. But the most idolatrous thing that, top 5 anyway, is the iconography of Roman Catholicism, the Russian church as well. I mean, I lived in Russia for a good while. The icons and the idolatry is absolutely completely off the hook, way, way far into outer space, beyond anything that they started using the 4th century regarding the term pagan. The symbolism and the iconography and the idolatry and these icons of worship, or the actual physical icon itself is worshipped. There's a great movie about this, and everybody should see it, even though it's made by the Lutheran Church actually paid for the movie. And I think it stars Ralph Fiennes. I can't remember the actor's name. It's called Luther. And it gives you a great insight. It's really a great movie to watch. I suggest everybody watch the movie Luther. It's about the indulgences and the people would actually crawl on their knees so they could get a glimpse of a holy relic. Like this was Emperor Constantine's hangnail. Now, I mean, they'll literally, I think I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. They would have things as ridiculous as a petrified pinky toe, and it'd be covered in gold with a little glass window, and more gold around that, and more gold, and armed guards on either side, and people would crawl on their knees and witness it. And, oh my God, I saw Emperor Constantine's holy petrified toe. They would spread the remains out to all corners. By the way, earliest Buddhism did this as well. Once again, it wasn't Buddhism until the 16th century. Back then they called it Brahmayana, the path to the absolute. That's the only time it's actually called a specific name. It's like, what are your teachings to be called? Gautama, Brahmayana, which means path to, or ascension to, the absolute. After he died, they took his remains, and they were in 4 funerary topes, earthen mounds, and, in special little jars. They've since unearthed a few of those, but they were unearthed early on. It's like, well, there's not enough. 4 is not enough. This is spreading now, not as a metaphysics of transcendence and liberation. It's spreading as a religion because King Ashok was converted to this. And by the way, you can look up the pillar edicts of King Ashok and the rock edicts of King Ashok. And that metaphysics actually spread all the way to then ancient Egypt. In the 13th rock edict of King Ashok, it's mentioned those teachings of original Brahmayana, which unfortunately today goes by the name of Buddhism, being observed by King Ptolemy II of ancient Egypt. And there weren't enough remains, so they dug up the remains. I think there were 4 original tops where they subdivided his ashes 4 different ways. We need more. So they subdivided it. There's not enough. There's not enough places where we can gather money and make people worship, graven remains. So they subdivided them again. And there were actually, some of them were even subdivided a little bit more. They're spread thinner and thinner. This is funny, but it's not. But it's a true story. And this is where we enter into religion. The very thing that they accuse the quote-unquote pagans of, they themselves are extremely guilty of. Evil and ignorant people always will accuse you of doing something that they themselves are extremely guilty of. Oh, the pagans are idolaters. They're the ancient Greek term idolatrikos. Idolatrikos. It's like, no, you're the ones that are worshiping holy relics and indulgences and the petrified toe of Saint so-and-so. And there's actually even a point in history where people were digging up saints and subdividing the pieces, and and kings and holy, really, really, really rich people of the ancient world were paying a whole lot of money for. Rites and rituals is what everybody is doing today. Every time I hear the word meditation, my backside puckers. I go, ooh! Did you meditation? It's like, well, let's define the word meditation, because we can't, and that's not my idea. It's a fact. It's a ritual. It comes from the word melite, the ancient Greek word melite, which is one of the original Greek muses, of which there were 3. There was Melite and Meneme, and I forget the third one. But Melite became in Latin meditatio, okay? In Latin it's the meditatio, and in English we get the word meditation. And this is the muse of practices and rituals. And this is literally the muse of all religion, practices and rituals. This is the lowest form of obedience to a higher principle. When you do meditation, it's like, no, I actually engage in theology. It goes by a lot of different names: apophatism, retroduction, meneme, anamnesis, smriti, sati. There's really a lot of words for it in Egyptian and Sanskrit and Pali and Greek. There's a lot of words for it. Apophatism, via negativa. And literally, these are all referred to one and the same thing. Retroduction, pulling the spirit or subject away from objective enmeshment, false identity. Practices and rituals are, by their very nature, profane, base, and rituals. And of course, iconography and rituals and practices go together like peanut butter and jelly on white bread. They are one and the same thing, of the lowest form of obedience. And I don't care if people do them, I couldn't care less. By the way, this idea of monasticism, which actually bled in from Christianity into Buddhism, is the reason why all of these translations, which translate the ancient Pali term, of which I've been translating now for 24 plus years, they translate bhikkhu and bhikkhuni as monk and nun. Well, they don't mean that at all. It means a devotee on the path of wisdom and illumination. Wisdom, once again, is not a group activity. It can't be. There's no way it can be. It never has been, and to follow it truly, it never will be. It comes from the word bhakti, which means to give. When you give, you're devoted to something. You are a devotee of the path. Religions plot and they scheme. It's power play and politics. It's money and influence. Holy sites, holy books, holy rituals, and once again, ritual, the ancient Greek muse Melite. People leave burnt offerings and, the red cow thing that's about to go on over there in the Middle East. They got the perfect red heifers, and, you point them at a certain direction, and, if you really thought that the Absolute was sentient being, you really think it would care what you taking out red heifers, and, I mean, you really bring your brain, heap enough of your brains together in a pile to believe something that ignorant? I mean, that is a ritual. Every form of human stupidity through all ancient history is rituals. A ritual, which is an existential phenomenal practice, can never bring about wisdom. It has nothing to do with transcendence. Wisdom, by the way, is just a fancy word meaning self-proximity. Self-proximity meaning the transcendent self, just as the transcendent self, not perfect analogy, the transcendent itself would of course be the signal, which is not in the radio. The signal is everywhere and nowhere, right? Let's not get to the transmitting station. That's taking the analogy too far. Versus the existential self. The existential self, of course, would be the broadcast from this radio. The broadcast is not to be confused with the transcendent self. Broadcast confused with the signal. People that engage in rituals are making the radio clean, they're keeping it charged, and they make sure that it's grounded and everything's perfect. That has nothing to do with removing the modulation of the signal by the signal and of the signal itself. Of course, the signal means a frequency, and the frequency is why it can be tuned. Metaphysics and wisdom is something that really escapes a lot of people, and I know a lot of people's minds can't wrap around that, but that is the higher path. That is the path of true transcendence. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this, and that's not my idea. Every ancient true master has said this. Adi Sankara, Ayishri Sankaracharya, in the Upatisahasri, the Vivachudamuni, the principal Upanishads, Gautama, Plotinus, Syrianus, Damasius, Proclus, Numenius, Pythagoras, Porphyry, on and on and on and on and on. You know what something's really easy to do? So devotion to my deity is very difficult work. I've heard that a million times in my life. It's like, the devotion that you're talking about is so difficult. Yeah, it's hard for me to abstain myself from food during the Holy Week of whatever. The Holy Week of Bada Bing. Man, I'm so hungry during the Holy Week of Bada Bing. You're talking about a ritual. You really think that starving yourself is... Yes, it's very hard to do. You're talking about a ritual. Some rituals are hard. I mean, like jogging 10 miles a day would be hard. That's a ritual too. I don't want to do it, but I do it. Good for you. You're healthy and, you know, you got nice leg muscles and everything like that. That's a ritual. That is difficult on an existential level, but there's a different difficulty. It is a transcendent level of self-proximity. Religions divide, metaphysics unites. There's an interesting word, and there's really almost no references to it other than Sidianus and one ancient reference from Proclus. And the term in the Greek is theologikoterios. Let me repeat that. Theologikoterios. Inaccurately translated as divine science. What it means is science of wisdom insight, which doesn't sound as poetic as saying divine science. But this divine science is meneme, is theurgy. It goes by the term apophatism, via negativa, retroduction, smriti, sati, anamnesis. It is retraction back. It is self-proximity. It would be if the gold itself were sentient and it were trying to extract itself out from what it's enmeshed in. Like 14 karat gold, for example, is what, 56% gold? What if the gold were sentient, which is kind of a big stretch there, and it's trying to disenmesh itself from things that... I have a 14 karat necklace that my wife gave me. It looks like gold, and it is gold, but it's only 56% gold. The rest of it is silver and copper. You know, different carats of gold get embedded with other things. Copper, gold, nickel, rarely. Silver, typically, usually silver and copper. You know, extraction, the modulation of, you know, I tell people, what's the opposite of dilution? Well, the opposite of dilution is concentration. Yeah, but anytime I say or you think of the word concentration, you're thinking about, you know, thinking really hard, like burning the wood between your ears. That's a ritual. That is not theurgy. That is not the term, and it's a really kind of a magical term, not literally. This theologikoterios, the divine science, or the super science of theurgy. It would really be the metaphysics of theurgy, this retroductive assimilation of extracting yourself out from embodiment. By the way, there's a few books that I recommend. I recommend a few more than this. You know, some like the Metaphysics. Everybody should be reading the Metaphysics. Even Meister Eckhart, Jakob Böhme. Porphyry was a disciple of Plotinus. He was perpetually depressed. But he had great insights. This is letters to his wife Marcella and launching points to the realm of the mind. These are kind of hard to get, but you can find them out there online. Thanks to me. You're welcome. And here's another great one. You could get this one off of... I wish you were still alive today. Algis Udavinus. This is called Philosophies of Right of Rebirth. I've had so many, literally, no exaggeration, thousands of people thank me for recommending this. Oh my God! It seemed like a tough book at first. I'm so happy I've read it twice. So thank you so much for recommending this book. He's written a few books. Not all of them are great. There's only actually one of them that's not that great. But you can get this one on Amazon. You could also, too, find it out there. I'll let you figure out what that means. Immersion versus ascension. Rituals are always about immersion. Rituals, practices, all rituals and practices, and we're talking about religion here, are about immersion. Anything that is true metaphysics or the theologikoterios, divine science or divine science of theurgy, is about ascension. Every ancient culture, they have different phrases for it, but they all refer to one and the same thing. Yoga chittavriti nyoroda, ascension or transcendence, i.e. the fruit of yoga, is chitta vritti nirodha, the subjugation of the spirit's perturbations. Vritti nirodha, the subjugation of perturbations of the spirit, chitta. Bhava nirodha nibbandham. Nirvana means the subjugation of becoming. Subjugation, bhava, becoming, it means modulation. No different than frequency. Bhava nirodha nibbandham. Nirvana means the subjugation of modulation. Bhava nirodha. Subjugation of modulation. Bhava nirodha. They're all saying the exact same thing. These are not practices. These are not rituals. These are, to the ancient Greek muse, meneme. Religion is secularized metaphysics. All true metaphysics de-evolves into practices and rituals. And then it becomes politics, power play, money, icons. The very thing that they're accusing these so-called pagans of is the very thing that they themselves are heinously guilty of. I don't tell anybody what to do or think. I'm not interested in that, what people do, because wisdom is its own reward. The only people that are trying to convert other people, get you to join them, is this idea of collectivism. Once again, wisdom is not a group activity, are the people that are behind these belief systems. They always want you, it's like, what is it about me joining your group that raises you up? You should always ask them that. Like, they're not happy unless they could get more people to believe in the craziness that they believe in. You know, I'm so happy with what I believe, but what would make me a lot happier if I could get more people to believe it too? Because if you get a lot of people believing something, then everybody's collectively happier. It can't be wrong because there's a billion people that believe in it. It's crazy, isn't it? That is crazy. It can't be wrong. Think of how many people follow it. Nothing true is popular, and nothing popular is true. Hope you like these videos. If you ever want to send me an email or something, my email's in the description below. Lux Veritas. Goodbye.